Knoxville Technology Council was founded with a mission to connect, develop, promote, and advocate for the technology industry in the greater Knoxville region. Through our various events and programs, we provide a collective voice for the tech community, and we're just getting started.
We are proud to announce our latest U.S. Delivery Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. The Knoxville Center is part of our global delivery network, united in the pursuit and delivery of impactful and cost-effective technologies and innovation for our clients across the United States. With our forward-looking partners, we're ready to create local IT jobs, engage regional educators, support area workforce development, provide opportunities for Knoxville students, graduates, and professionals, and be an integral member of the community. Knoxville is home to the University of Tennessee Knoxville and its nationally ranked analytics and data science program, top graduate supply chain program, acclaimed research programs. We're working with the university to create an agile, emerging technology center of expertise in Knoxville. Core to CGI's culture, our professionals get involved in our communities through volunteer activities involving education, youth, families, military veterans, and groups that are underrepresented in STEM fields, including women, minorities, and the economically disadvantaged. Through the center, our clients will tap into Knoxville-based IT talent and local innovators to help them create competitive advantage and catalyze innovation. We're here to build durable relationships, not only as a capable business enabler for our clients, but as a caring member of the community. And together with our team in Knoxville, we're ready to take on our clients' toughest challenges to help them emerge transformed.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Tech Talk. The future of artificial intelligence is Web3, hosted by the Knoxville Technology Council in partnership with CGI. My name is Matt Kittrell, and along with my CGI colleague and partner, Lori Ortega, I lead CGI's presence in the Knoxville market. I also have the honor of serving on the board of directors of the Knoxville Technology Council, where my service is focused on leading the council's workforce development efforts and activities. The Knoxville Technology Council exists to connect, develop, promote, and advocate for the technology industry in the greater Knoxville region. We hope that events like this encourage valuable conversation and collaboration. Founded in 1976 with 91,500 member partner employees across the globe, CGI is among the largest IT and business consulting firms in the world. We're insights-driven and outcomes-based to help accelerate returns on our clients' investments. In Knoxville, our offices are at the Riverview Tower, where we occupy the 10th, 11th, and part of the 12th floors. We love to host events like this one and hope to see you at one in the future. So now we're going to transition into our presentation for the evening. And it's my pleasure to introduce Gary Jackson, a CGI director who leads our intellectual property solutions, specifically artificial intelligence, which we brand Pulse, CGI Pulse AI, and our distributed ledger technologies IP solutions, which at CGI we brand Trusted Fabric. Gary has a 25 plus year background, and that's right, he started when he was in junior high, has a 25 plus year background in data science, big data engineering, and has worked in sales, pre-sales, delivery, enablement, innovation, and managing global partner alliances while working all over the world working and living all over the world in North and South America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Australia, and Africa. So again, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce tonight's speaker, and I'll turn it over to you now, Gary. Gary Jackson, everybody.
Hey, thanks a lot, Matt. Hey, Matt, thank you for doing this too. I know it's a little crazy. We're having some crazy winter weather here in Knoxville. So we're having to go back to COVID times.
Yeah. And we hoped to have hosted this at our Riverview Tower offices tonight, Gary. So miss being in the office with you tonight, but
Me too.
Super excited that we're able to adjust and do this, to your point, in COVID format.
Right. COVID.
Without
format.
the COVID. That's
without the COVID, which is even better. Thanks so much, Matt. And looking forward to seeing you back in the office next week, buddy.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm Gary Jackson. As he said, I'd like to say my name over and over again. I'm very excited about this talk. This is a different format for all of us. I know we do live streams, but we wanted to do something a little bit more interactive and try to create something that's kind of a little bit more fun than just looking at someone in a, just basically a head speaking to some slides. We wanted to make it interactive. If you are watching online, there is a chat. If you're looking at the link through Eventbrite, you'll see that there is a chat section over on that side. You can feel free to ask questions. For those people that are watching online through social media and stuff like that, feel free to post some questions there. Those will come up as well. These topics are very, how would I say it, experimental. So they're not perfect and they're changing probably every 5 minutes. So very excited about having new input, asking questions. We may not have all the answers, but we're looking forward to kind of engaging with you. So with that being said, don't want to waste a lot of time. I know we've got only about an hour here, but I do want to try to cover some great stuff. This is a little controversial topic, future of artificial intelligence, Web3, because AI is not really getting a good rap right now. So let's get into that. Now, my background is, Matt was kind of alluding to it a little bit. I've been very lucky. I've been, as that song goes, traveling man. I'm originally from the States, lived in Germany, South Africa, Hong Kong, Brazil, Philippines, doing data science, analytics, that type of thing. Now I've worked for CGI for almost 2.5 years. The first 2 years I was with CGI Federal. I've just transitioned over to CGI Commercial and helping out with business developments, primarily for a product called Trusted Fabric, which we'll get into a little bit later, and helping out with another AI product that we have called Pulse AI. So that's kind of my background. Feel free to just use that QR code if you want to add me up on LinkedIn or just look up GS Jackson there. Now, my claim to fame, or what kind of brought me into CGI, is a couple of years ago, I was asked to be able to write or help write a technology to help Esquire Singapore write a magazine, half written by robot, half written by a human. This was back in 2019, before ChatGPT really kind of was out there in the world. And when I got the call, can you do it? I just said yes. And then I had to figure out a way to do it. I partnered up with a buddy of mine out of Germany. He created a technology, he had actually started creating a technology called AI Writer. We did write it. So AI Writer was originally created by Fabian Langer, who's an amazing guy, still doing amazing work in this field. We not only did we have to write articles, we had to edit and curate those. We actually won an advertising award from Berlin Advertising, and that was in 2019. You can see the QR code. You can go and kind of look at it yourself if you wanted to there. And we even wrote, when we realized something had really popped was when there was a letter from the robot, which was like the letter from the editor. So the robot had to write a letter to the audience that was reading its content. And basically the letter from the robot said, hey, you basically know that, and hopefully no kids are listening, but there's no Santa Claus and AI is not real, but why do you try to persecute AI? That's the article it wrote without any inputs from us. This was in 2019. When I read this that it had written, it took about 5 minutes to write about 1,000 words. My hairs on the back of my neck kind of went tingly. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is actually working. This is crazy. It had some issues with he's and these and prepositional phrases and that type of thing. But the the thing I will say that was a little different than what you see with ChatGPT, you could cite sources. So you could actually curate and cut out content to feed the AI writer so it could write with a certain empathy and context, which was kind of cool at that time. But after that, we started getting kind of inundated with requests from certain countries, China and Russia. There was even a news article or a news report that was done on Russian Today that actually used me, my likeness, used some of my counterparts' likeness, and we didn't give them authorization for that, talking about our AI writer. And then we realized the presidential election of 2020 was just about to hit. And we're like, what have we done? We've created this AI writer that can create all this misinformation. So immediately we went into startup mode again, created another startup with two good friends of mine. One lives in Berlin, just happens to have just moved to Berlin. His name is Toby Kindle, called Blockstamp. And basically what it was is to stamp content on the blockchain with a hash or a watermark to prove that content was real. And you could trace it back to the people that actually had authorized that content to be created. We even offered it to political candidates, but unfortunately the political candidates didn't want to have it. They wanted to be able to change on the dime, which was kind of crazy. And it's funny that you're going to see history repeats itself as I get into this. So that was kind of my background, AI writer. Then we created Blockstamp. We were able to exit out and sell the technology for Blockstamp to other things. And then I kind of got pulled into CGI, which is pretty incredible. And the product that's near and dear to my heart on the commercial side is something called Trusted Fabric. I'm just going to do a quick plug so we can get into it, what we're going to be talking about. But I did want to use this time to kind of do a little bit of a spiel about it, Trusted Fabric. And what I'm not going to do is talk about the technology and how it works. I want to kind of give you some press releases about some of the awesome stuff we're doing with Trusted Fabric. So we're actually building a universal virtual flight data recorder. So right now, after the Malaysian Air Flight 370, MH370 went down, they could never retrieve the black box. There was a big call of arms, like how can we create a technology where we don't need that physical black box? So CGI is right in the thick of creating this virtual flight data recorder for all the airlines. We've got a demo. We're working on some of the those concepts right now, and we'd love, if you're an airline in the airline industry, very interested in seeing how this works. We still don't recommend taking the black box out, the physical one, but we leave it as a backup. But our virtual flight data recorder is the one that we're kind of going with. There's a press release there. You can scan that QR code and go through that. We'd love to be able to work with you from a partner's perspective. And that core technologies with Trusted Fabric, by the way. The other one that we're doing is we're doing a lot of work with Google. So CGI and Google, we've kind of created a partnership, especially around this technology we call Pulse AI. Why is it called Pulse? It's a human in the loop. You have a human pulse that's involved in that, which is pretty cool. And we use Trusted Fabric in combination with Pulse AI to do AI training chain of custody, and also being able to create a digital vault. One of the things that you're going to see as we get into this presentation is how do you protect your IP? How do you protect your data getting in the wild and all of a sudden someone eating it up and training AI on that? And that's where Trusted Fabric kind of comes in for that. Feel free to scan that QR code for that press release. And last but not least, as we start going into the blockchain or the Web3 components of it, we've been doing a little bit of work with basically creating with the CGI Trade 360 platform and be able to hook that with blockchain. And we're doing blockchain ready and digital marketplace, tokenizing kind of assets. Don't want to get too nerdy with that. We'll get into a little bit of that later, but I just wanted to show you some of the use cases and some of the work that we're doing with that IP that I'm working on and doing business development for. Okay, now take a breather. What we're going to be talking about is we're going to talk about some of the cool generative AI opportunities that's out there. We definitely want to kind of talk about, let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see. We also want to talk about the legal ramifications. And that's where everything's going to start pivoting. The legal ramifications of AI and how that's being introduced. And that's why I also say the future of artificial intelligence is Web3. And then we're going to talk about what Web3 is. If you don't know much about it, we'll kind of get into some simple anecdotes around that. Then we're going to introduce the concept of explainable AI, XAI. And then we're going to talk about something called introduction of blockchain tethered AI, which is BTA. And then final, we'll just kind of do a wrap up to show kind of what a use case, a demo of the future of artificial intelligence. So those are the things we're going to be talking about. Just note, I did present this a little bit earlier in the year when it was warmer, not so much winter storm, snowstorm weather as we've had here in Knoxville. And this is kind of a version 2 of that presentation I made a little bit earlier on. So generative AI, we all of us have heard of it. ChatGPT, Midjourney, being able to create amazing images, prompt engineering, being able to do that thing, be able to create some really cool AI content. Now, there's some issues that comes with that. As we get into it, at a simplified level, you offer these inputs, you pass it into a model or an algorithm, and then there's an output. I mean, it's AI. Not even 101, it's ABC. And what we're doing is we're passing it a picture. And then now how it's been working in the past is you have to say, hey, I'm going to give you a picture and here's that picture. And then you say, here's a model I'm going to apply to it. And then the outputs come out and say, oh, this picture is a cat. Things are progressing so fast, especially some of the things that we've seen with Google and how OpenAI is going. I don't even have to tell you that it's an image. I just say here. And then it reads it. Oh, it's an image. Oh, it's a cat. Oh, here's some models. I'm going to recommend some models for you from a low code, no code. Oh, and this is a picture of a cat. So it's really starting to speed up very quickly on some basic levels around how AI is working from when it first started out. And I'd just like to put this slide out there to get it out of the way. Everyone really talks about the ethics of AI, the responsible AI and ethics AI. But one of the things I always tell people is it's always the humans that are pushing the buttons. Even if AI is learning and doing things and automating things, it gets set on its course by a human. I'll just give you a really quick scenario. We were working with a bank. This bank was making $1 million a week in seconds using this AI model. And then when it was told, hey, you need to be compliant, you need to show an explainable AI model. And what does explainable mean? I'm going to break all the components out and show every piece that made this AI model come alive, right? So what happened with that is once the explainable AI model came on, the time it took, the seconds turned into an hour, sometimes 2 hours. The amount of money they were making, $1 million, went down to $10,000. So then they had a decision to make. Do they become compliant and start losing out on that money, or do they pay the fine to be compliant? And in the long term, on paper, to be able to pay the fine, which is only like $100,000 per year, it's cheaper for them to pay the fine and not be explainable. So as we talk about those ethics AI and responsible AI, it really comes back to the humans that are executing these type of scenarios and what decisions they're going to make. So AI really isn't sentient yet. It's not trying to steal your wife, steal your kids, find all your money out, carve it out. But what I do want to do with this presentation is to get you as humans to think about what is the responsibility of me to be compliant around that. And in case that wasn't enough for you, there is some AI guidelines by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. There's an artificial intelligence risk management framework that's out there that you can follow. It's not that vague. It has set up some basic structures, but it's not perfect or engrossing on all details, but at least gets you kickstarted to be able to kind of think about, okay, what kind of compliant framework do I want to roll through? Okay, so let's get into the gossip, the bad stuff that's really causing AI to have some issues, and why we need to kind of save it if we want to, if we choose to save it. The legal ramifications. I'm not sure if you've been seeing this recently, but there's been New York Times, of course, has sued Microsoft and ChatGPT over the copyright infringements of OpenAI. That's been in the news. And then on the opposite side, in the UK, I was just in London to celebrate my birthday, but also do some work. But OpenAI is pleading with British Parliament to that it basically it needs to use copyrighted materials for free, or it will go out of business. So you have this where they're taking content to be able to train it. And then they're also asking, hey, don't charge us for this content or sue us for it because we need it. If not, we'll go out of business. So we have this ironic conundrum between creating content by somewhat stealing it, or data in the wild. Let's not call it stealing it. We're taking data from in the wild and we're bringing it up, right? And then you have, hey, we can't survive without training data. And there has to be a happy compromise. There really has to be a compromise between trying to make a decision around because we want to use AI. All of us want to use AI in some way or fashion. There should be a way to create a walled garden, a massive walled garden, feed it in, protect my IP, make predictions or automate things, and then withdraw. And it's not in the wild. And that's something we're going to kind of talk about as we get into this. Other things to talk about, you'll see on the legal, there's a talk of creating AI watermarks. That's exactly what I did with block stamped, that technology I talked about. In this case, they're actually creating watermarks encoding during the model training. And then there's watermarks detection after the output of the generation of the content, whatever that might be. In this case, we're looking at watermarks for written content. So when you look at it, your search engine or whatever it is says, hey, this was generated by AI, this was generated by organic human. And I think that there needs to be a distinction around that. But they're still working on this global standard of how it works. On the block stamp side, what I was building before is, why can't we put it onto a blockchain that's immutable, and be able to share that information as we go through that, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that, of course, when we get to blockchain tethered AI. And of course, on the deep fakes, images, that type of thing, Sony, Nikon, and Canon are coming to fight deep fakes, where they're creating this kind of a watermark as well. They want to create these digital signatures so you can identify when images have been manipulated or changed. You can see that how they're doing it in their tech specs on this QR code if you want to scan that. So there's these legal ramifications and these ways to fix it. And of course, always government likes to get involved in things. So there's been an executive order by the Biden administration to be able to create a safe and secure, trustworthy development use of artificial intelligence. So there's all this coming out about compliance or regulation. And then how do you comply? How do you create regulation for it? There's even a federal agency here that they've actually if you go to ai.gov, there's this federal agency that's actually focusing on how do we create this regulation and how do we create these frameworks. And it seems one last thing to say about politics in the United States. It seems like they can't do a lot of things. This is a political view from Gary Jackson. Sometimes our House and Senate can't do a lot of things, but man, they're fast tracking a lot of this AI act that they have in Congress right now to try to get that out. There's two intelligence bills that's out there. One is pretty comprehensive to make sure you're compliant. The other act is basically you have to be self-report. So which that's kind of back to the human being. Does a company want to self-report its compliance to AI, or do you want to make sure that your AI is really compliant and regulating? So there's two bills in Congress. Let's see how that battle faces out. But our counterparts over in Europe, and they have this GDPR, basically in Article 22, there is a right to explain. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If any AI comes up with any decision, you have to explain it, or you could potential fines or open yourself up to a lawsuit. And that's around anything, not getting a loan, not getting a car, not being able to buy a house. And if they report that, I want to fight you on that, they have to show the way to explain that. Germany has some specific ones that they're passing right now around AI, especially around the manufacturing side. And then European Union, just before everyone left for Christmas, France, Italy, and Germany came together to create a European Artificial Intelligence Act to kind of do this. So a lot of legislation, a lot of regulation. So how do we do that? Said a lot very quickly. So let's pause for a second. As we've said, AI. This is a presentation where we're taking shots. Every time I took a shot, every time I said AI and you took a shot, we would be a little tipsy right now. So now let's take a different track and let's go to Web3. Now, how does introduction to Web3? And what we mean by Web3 is basically this slide is a little busy. It shows that the beginning of the internet was just making a website, putting content out there for people to read. And then, I remember my first website back in 1996 that I built. It was very, very exciting. But now what we've done is we've moved from that over to social media, Facebook, Twitter, those type of interfaces as well, and being able to share data. So, Facebook, Google, they've taken our data and being able to kind of use it to their own devices. What Web3 is we take our data back, and they have to ask, and providers have to ask for consent. And our data is decentralized. It's not all in one pot. We decentralize, and we've taken our ownership of that back. And that's really the core concepts of what Web3 is and where we're going with that. With those concepts, and as we're doing that, the simplification of this, which is really, really simple, is keywords for Web3. It's decentralized. Yes, there's that word blockchain. And it's amazing when you say the word blockchain, how people just go in two different pairs. They split in two different directions. One direction, they'll say, nope, I don't want to do anything with blockchain. That's cryptocurrency. And others say, hey, I'm all in. Let's do this. And what we want to try to show here is that blockchain is just a ledger. It's just like an accounting ledger, an immutable ledger that you can't change. When a transaction happens, it is there digitally forever. As I say, until an asteroid hits the Earth. Maybe even after that, but that's a little bit morbid. And then the other thing is that trustless. I can go into this environment and use it, and then because of the transparency, I can actually be, I don't have to know everything about everybody. I can just use the system. And then that goes into another one thing that we say digital identities. How do we know who you really say you are? How do I verify who that person is? And we're going to talk a little bit about those concepts as we go through this. So really cool features here. Just want to put it out there for Web3. GDPR compliant. That's really kind of the features that Web3 was kind of created for. It's decentralized. It's immutable. It's interdependency leverages. And what that means is there's no vendor lock. You can use tons of open source technologies and kind of weave them together to be able to create kind of this tapestry. And again, not to do a plug, but one of the reasons why we call it Trusted Fabric. And if you think Web3 is not happening, or like I'm going to ignore it until it goes away, well, Web3 adoption is happening just like the internet was adopted. It's really ramping up very quickly over the amount of time here. So you can see that Web3 is not going away anytime soon. And if in fact, it's actually gaining traction as we go through this. And some of the technologies you may have heard that use Web3, storage of value. Of course, you've heard Bitcoin, which has been thrown around and usually is synonymous with blockchain and Web3. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that uses blockchain as its immutable ledger. Sometimes they can be seen as synonymous, but that's the one that kind of everyone knows. You can see how long that's been around. Smart contracts, basically being able to rule with automated contracts, automated rules that allows you to be able to do things and be able to execute things when certain credentials have been met. And then decentralized finance. There's a lot of stuff around, being able to, there's a lot of work going on with like digitizing currency. I know that there's a project right now in Brazil where they're actually digitizing the real. And there's also talk and work on the US dollar being digitized. NFTs, oh my goodness. The amount of money that was spent during COVID, during the pandemic years on just random images that may or may not be worth anything in the future, but it was worth of value because they were unique, non-fungible tokens where they cannot be repeated. And then, of course, tokenization, which we'll get into. And now the big talk right now, especially in the European Union, is talking about identities. So these things are happening, and they're happening as we go. Tokenization around different assets, being able to create different digital currencies, being able to digitize deeds. I know in the state of Montana, they're actually got a project going on now where they're actually creating tokenized deeds of trust, or being able to land grants and that type of thing. So tokenization is happening, and it's coming. And what does all this have to do with everything I'm kind of bringing from artificial intelligence perspective? Well, the key to this is being able to create kind of a digital identity that cannot be erased, and it's linked to really who you are. And this is really being pushed by the European Union. Even back in September of 20, the president of the European Commission was adamant to say, we have to be able to create these digital identities and prove you are who you say you are. Okay. Now, these topics and concepts, what are the opportunities that we have with Web3? Well, I'm going to show you some things that I've done. I know there's a lot of cool things out there, but these are the things I've done here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We were able to build like an immutable vaccine supply chain. When monkeypox came out, or when it really started being big on the media scene and the news cycles, there was a concern with monkeypox like HIV was in the 80s. And the problem with that is the data to help the people that were suffering from monkeypox, they were actually it was being weaponized. And that's not good. And so when we were doing some work with a supply chain school with University of Tennessee, Knoxville, we came up with this scenario and this kind of solution where we built an immutable vaccine supply chain that allows us to be able to use blockchain to get, first of all, to protect the patients that are suffering from monkeypox, and using zero knowledge proofs and computed data and all these little cool technology terms to be able to get to have universities collaborate to be able to come up with ideas and research around the vaccines, be able to share that with the CDC, and then be able to get it out to the United Health Organization, and of course down to the pharmacies that actually can get the vaccines to the people from monkeypox. So it was a very exciting thing. This happened, I guess this was back in 2022 when we built this kind of simulated solution for that. We also built another solution with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We built what we call a visor vault. What does that mean? We're all getting older. Our parents are getting even older, especially in my generation. I'm that Gen X, not a boomer and not a millennial, right in the middle. Like to claim my stake there. Don't want to be lopped into one or the other. But as a Gen Xer, our parents are getting older as they get, and we're having to be able to do a lot of health things. And one of the problems that we're finding is a lot of their health information is being kind of rated and sent to pharmaceutical companies and healthcare companies without their consent. So the University of Tennessee, our Tickle Engineering senior design class, we actually created a digital vault that people could keep all of their health records inside, which was pretty powerful. And you're able to give consent to your family members, as a consortium, to be able to share that of your mother and your father and be able to give it out. Really powerful. And hopefully a lot of that class and senior class who's now gone on to graduate and work at AWS, and they're using that technology they built where they are now, which is kind of powerful. And one thing that I do like to throw out there, I just want to make sure, give a little shout out to the state of Tennessee. Sometimes Tennessee is not known for it's known for country music, it's known for Jack Daniels, but it's not well known that it's known for DAOs. DAOs, so decentralized autonomous organizations. It's a way to kind of do a digital co-op that I can actually I can tokenize all my assets, my deeds, my all of the assets that I have, and the DAO can become an incorporation, an LLC, where there's a little less taxable, and also it becomes a transparent, immutable kind of organization where people can be able to transact, do governance on these assets, be able to share their opinions on them, and be able to create and innovate around this. Just want to put out there, the DAOs are brand new, very experimental, but they are legal corporate entities in the state of Tennessee. But we're not the only state. The other states are Wyoming, Tennessee, of course, and Vermont. The other countries that share being able to basically look at DAOs and recognize them is Switzerland, Malta, Estonia, Gibraltar, and Cayman Islands. So we're kind of in a cool, unique place to be able to do this. And DAOs are based on using a blockchain as an immutable ledger for all the transactions that you do as a corporation. Okay, said a lot of stuff. A lot of concepts, Web3, AI, legal issues. Now what we want to do is we want to introduce the concept of explainable AI, XAI. And the goal here is that we just, and this is a horrible analogy, I hate to say it, but I just want to put it out there. It's basically doing an autopsy on AI, breaking it into its bits and its body parts and be able to figure out how it made its decisions and how it got to where it's going to go. That's a key component of what explainable AI is and how it works. And why is there a need for this? We're going so fast as consumers, building, GPTs, especially in the OpenAI marketplace. Gemini just came out from Google. There's so many new technologies that are coming out with AI, but regulation is not really keeping up. Yes, we just saw there's a lot of regulation coming, and get me, I am not saying that just over-regulate the crap out of AI, but what I am saying is there needs to be a way to, at least if AI goes rogue, to explain why it went rogue and prevent it from happening again, or a kill switch for that matter of fact. Not that it's trying to kill us, but sometimes it can go off, and we need to be able to look at the AI training data sets, look at where it's going in its forecasts, and be able to root out issues that it faces that can cause hallucinations or poisonings. And that's kind of why XI is needed. And as you look at it, what is that need of XI? So this is how AI works now. You have your training data set, you have your machine learning process, you have your learn function, and then basically there's this task. And then what you need to find out as a user is, why did it make that decision? Why didn't it not choose something else? It really, AI is working like that magic 8-ball. I shake it up, I basically ask it a question, and it tells me, it is so. You should do this. But that's not enough. You can't tell me to make a big decision on my company or my life and then not tell me where you got to it. Even when we talk to other human beings and they make a recommendation for me, we see their history to prove to me why I should listen to you. And they explain their backstory so we can build that trust with them, which is so very, very key for this. So this is what it does now. We're asking these questions. How do we get it to another place? And we also have some complications around explainable AI. There's privacy. Why should I share this data, and especially our data in the wild? Security concerns around that. The model. Let's say that AI could be explained. Let me tell you something. Some of these models were so complex. Who are you going to explain it to? How are you going to dumb it down? What is explain? Like, explain what you mean by explaining. So AI model complexity, there's that human bias, like in the imprinting side. How do you root that and find those pieces? And what the user's understanding of what it's supposed to do versus what it really does. And remember, XI, resembles a black box, and it becomes a challenging task for experts to understand the logical explanation for an algorithm. How do we explain this? How do we visualize it? How do we tell someone how this works? So that's the complications and the complexities around this. But the real go, if you don't hear anything tonight, which I've said a lot, well, if you haven't heard anything tonight, is basically XIA means humans in the loop, keeping humans in the loop on everything. That ultimately there's I hate to say it like this, a throat to choke as it's being fed into. So right now, as you see this basic AI implementation, today, how it works now is basically you doing training data, machine process, learn function. With XIA, training data, machine learning function, explain the module, have an explainable interface, which all is interpretable, by the way, the context of it. And so you can understand why not, why it succeeded, why it failed, and why I should trust. The trust piece is so important. So how do I know I can trust this AI model in the future? There's no drift and those type of things as it comes up. So I want to talk about 3 XIA models. By the way, too, there's a lot more, and there's a lot more coming. And I'm hoping that the people that are watching this, if there's anybody, or those people that are out there, there's some amazing, this is an amazing opportunity to create your own models, because XIA is such in its infancy. But we have 3 that I want to talk about. We have one called LIME, a local interpretable model agnostic explanations. And how this works is you can use it with any model, and it does break it into its components, but afterwards. Your model runs, does what it does, then there's a massive long process to go back and break it into its components to explain how it got to where it is. So if you're looking for explainable in the moment before it goes off and does something, that you just don't agree with, Lyme is not your answer. It's the after the fact model. We do have the Lyme model here, the GitHub, and you can actually use this QR scan to be able to look at it. I think that there might be a way to maybe, reverse it, be able to use it, streamline it, break it into, make it multi-threaded or do it simultaneous, and basically, but this is one of those, that Lyme model is post the AI has made a decision. Then there's one that comes from kind of my neck of the woods in Atlanta, Georgia, out of Georgia Tech. There's one that called RETAIN, Reverse Time Attention Model. It's an explainable model, but it's very focused on predicting heart attacks. So it explains it and it uses healthcare data, and it looks for influence of past visits, significant clinical variables such as key diagnosis, those type of things. So it's very specific to healthcare. It is in the moment. It does explain why it made this decision, and then it's able to prevent or predict a type of healthcare emergency around a heart attack and that type of thing. So anyway, so that's the same thing. That's one of the models that's out there. But this is the one I'm going to be, you talk about human bias. I'm just going to be biased here. Here's one I think that has the most hope. There might be others that come out, but one of the ones I look at is it's called LRP, layer-wise relevance. And what this means is that I can run any model, and it basically breaks it into components as it's happening. However, it is a process-intensive endeavor. So it does take, that the scenario I told you earlier about the banks being able to, make $1 million every day versus making $10,000 with explainable AI because the process gets longer. But what I do see is with this LRP model, this could be really sped up and increased, made more efficient. And it could be, hopefully the goal is with this LRP model, you can make it near real time, which I think that's the goal for this. And if you wanted to be able to download this to be able to do more research on the LRP, there's the QR code and the link to the Explainable AI Foundation that we have. We're almost done. So just want to let you know, if you're like, okay, I don't know why I'm on this thing, or maybe you're trying to go to sleep. And this is your sleepy audible to put you to sleep. But we're about to get to some of the really deep, the deep cut around explainable AI and blockchain tethered AI stuff. So what we're trying to say here is explainable AI, I believe, is going to be one of the hottest technologies and the biggest startups. AI was hot. And I see some of the, of course, the stuff that's coming out is amazing, but I think explainable AI is going to be that massive market that comes out. And what we mean by XIA, what are the components of it? Being able to just have logs that we can search through. We can search those logs to be able to find certain parameters were met, certain situations happened, and then to be able to show the workflow. Then to be able to show, have reports around that, how the XIA model worked, and then be able to get it to the user. That's it at its basic functionality, what we want to be able to do with XIA and how we want that to go. Now, let's bring in the Web3 component. Why would I want to bring in blockchain and tether it to AI? Well, if you go back to this slide here, I can write anything to a log, and anyone can find that log and change it. And especially if I'm writing all the logs to one central location, someone can go in and break it in and change it. But with blockchain tethered, when you write it to the blockchain, it's immutable. You can't change it. You have to burn it down to the ground to be able to change something, which that is something to be talked about in a later presentation. But what we're going to introduce is, can we do this blockchain tethered AI for explainability? And why is this important? Blockchain tethered AI does a couple of cool things, which I think is kind of neat, which I just wanted to put out here is there's a couple of key features that work really, really well with it. Tamper proof. What we want to make sure is the explainable AI can't be poisoned. It can't be fed incorrect data. That data can be rooted out. It prevents adversarial attacks. It's almost impossible because everything has a certain bias, but it tries to be bias proof. It tries to be drift proof. And most importantly, around XIA, you literally have guardrails. You actually have a chain of transactions that are leading it around. So you can actually go back and rewind to those places. And those are some of the BTA or blockchain tethered AI goals for this. And there's some controls around this, being able to, set up you can do this blockchain tethered AI for participants, assets, transactions. It allows you to be able to do these default controls, which is really, really nice. And what would this workflow look like? Let me just say, no one told me, hey, Gary, can you create a slide that is so busy, nobody knows what the heck is going on? And I say, yes, I can do that right now. But if you look at this from left to right, looking at the digital identity, some of the technologies and some of the partners that we're working with on CGI, we're basically looking at how do you determine someone is who they say they are, to be able to link an AI being executed by a person. What's the thing that makes us the most unique? And hence, I said it with one of the IPs that we brought up before for CGI. It's called Pulse AI is what our AI thing, but a pulse, a human pulse, a heartbeat. We're working with a technology partner that basically allows your heartbeat to be linked to a digital identity. And once you authenticate with your heartbeat, first of all, that means a couple of things. Why is that important? I could use my eyes, facial recognition, log in with a username and password. Those things can be compromised. My eye could be plucked out. My finger could be taken off. But your heartbeat, not only is it unique, it means you're alive when you authenticate. So it's I've got a demo around this. If anyone's interested, please feel free to just kind of email me or ping me on LinkedIn or any of those things. I'd love to show the demo that we show with the heartbeat. But with this, what we're doing here is we're confirming that we're human. We're executing an AI model. It is running, and simultaneously this LRP model that is breaking all of its parameters, training, and models into components and writing those components, pointers or hashes on the chain and pointing off the chain where they live. Now, what's great about this is all of this can be linked to a distributed ledger technology. So all these components here, as I authenticate as a human being, using my heartbeat, breaking down these models into their components, and then basically being able to rewind and retrace how the AI was able to make a decision from that using blockchain tethered AI. There's some other examples here that I wanted to bring up. So some of the examples that we're working on, as a team is there's this term used to be seen as a bad term, or like the mobsters use it, called triple entry accounting. But what we're using in today's world with Web3 and blockchain, there's a way to be able to set up accounting where you have your books, I have my books, but then as we're making transactions back and forth, blockchain has its ledger that cannot be traced or changed. So once those transactions happen, there's that third party, immutable third party that can be there. And what's great about that is looking for fraud, being able to determine, different types of things, fraud, inconsistencies, overpayments. There's a really cool use case around triple entry accounting using this Web3 and AI. The other thing that we're looking at is machine learning ops, be able to see the birth and execution of AI from the beginning to the end, and all the components and stuff that's in between that, which is really important. And these are projects that we're working on with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We're also doing some projects with the ETSU, also in Johnson City. I know that my counterparts are doing some work with George Mason University, where we're doing these experimental XIA and blockchain tethered AI little projects that we're working with students. If you would be interested and you're watching this and you're like, hey, love to be a part of this group and be able to develop the future of how this is, or maybe not the future, but where things could go, please reach out to me. We'd love to be able to work with you around that. So we're almost there. Last two things to say. So the future of artificial intelligence is Web3. Why is that? If you let AI go without guardrails, or a way to not do, to understand or build trust. We build trust because we understand the history. That's so important. Be able to look at that transparently. That is why we say the future of artificial intelligence is Web3. And as you look at this, what that would look like. These are the solutions that are going to be coming down the line. Actually, I already know one solution that's been built here in Knoxville. I don't want to do too much of a plug yet because I'll let him do his own presentation at a later time. But there's an explainable AI solution that basically links everything to the distributed ledger technology, which is blockchain, and then basically be able to write all these parameters, training models to it. But the solution not only does it do this, but also offers a kill switch. You can turn something off. And then it does do the logs. It allows you to do from the logs, you can rewind to another component. So for example, if you are looking at it and you say, okay, that there's this training data set's been poisoned, I want to rewind to an earlier version where this poison data set is out. Other components that you might want to be able to do as you're looking at this too is basically you want to see reports and what I call throwbacks, being able to cite sources. One of the biggest things that I have a problem with how AI is now, as we built for AI Writer when we were writing for Esquire Singapore, is I should be able to curate my content as it's being fed into the training model and be able to throw back the things that I don't want and curate and edit. And most importantly, all of these components, as they're coming together, should be linked to a physical digital identity that is linked to a real human being, someone that we know really exists and is alive. And these are, we need to be able to trace back that, hey, I executed this. Sorry, it's me. When and I'm going to do the kill switch, or I'm going to do the rewind for it. And that's where we're kind of going the extended uses for blockchain tethered AI. So we talked about a lot of components. We are really going long. We went long for this, but I'm really, really excited about this topic. I just brought up some of the basics, the context, but I'm very open and now to questions that are online and questions that are in the chat, and we can get to this. And Matt, if you're still there, I don't know if you're still there. Do you want to kind of pop on and maybe help me curate some of these questions? You may have kind of dipped off already, but are you there, Matt? Or have I put you to sleep already, buddy?
No, I'd be happy to, Gary.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the questions that we have. Hold on. Let me find this. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let me look at these questions and see what they have. Hold on. Okay. So there was a question that was written that was in the chat by Vic, and he says, I would like to know more about the Pulse AI project. This will be a challenging with the sensor sensitivity and reliability in addition to accuracy and stuff. Pulse related, what happens when you are FAF? So Vic, I would love to get back with you on the Pulse AI projects, because Pulse AI is really built for kind of a low code, no code solution. So think about them as citizen data scientists who want to use AI, but also have humans in the loop. We have 3 components for Pulse AI. We have this hyper automation piece, which basically allows you to be able to use supervised learning to create like summarized content, Q&A searches, that type of thing. Then we have a decision intelligence from Pulse AI, which basically does the statistical data science-y type stuff with low code, no code. And then the final thing that we have is kind of this conversational chatbot component, which allows us to do kind of unsupervised. It allows you to learn and find new trends. Like one of the examples is it can determine new KPIs. Because let's be honest, I mean, Matt, we've talked about this before too, is sometimes we'll set a KPI 5 years ago and the KPIs don't change, but the whole world and technology is changing. So we can actually let AI say, hey, have you thought about this KPI? Because things are changing. So feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to show you some demos that get you involved in some of the Pulse AI stuff that we have there. Matt, do you have anything that you would like to add to any of this too, as I'm just kind of going on and on, going to the questions?
No, just appreciate Vic's interest in Pulse, and I think certainly you're the right person to to answer questions that he might have about that, Gary.
Well, I'll say this, Matt. There's an amazing team. We're very lucky in the Knoxville office. We have a really core development team that is based there in the office, and they're scattered around the world. They're so much smarter than I am. And one person I'd love to shout out to is Rue, who's in Utah, who's been really just been fantastic to help me out on the Pulse AI stuff. But there is one other question that's here in the chat. It's by Mike. And yeah, Vic just asked on LinkedIn. Just feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to, Vic, or you can just just reach out to me on LinkedIn. But Mike asked a question that I thought was really interesting. What happens when you are in AFib around the heartbeat thing? And this is so when we talked about being able to prove that you're a human being and that you log in with your heartbeat. I always get the question, what if you're having a heart attack? You can't log in. Well, my question always is, and we posed this when we were over in Europe doing some stuff, is if you're having a heart attack, you shouldn't be logging in. But I'm just saying. But then the second thing, my wife brought up this one, which is bigger than AFib. What if you get a heart replacement? We actually had a counterpart that was in Europe who did have one of our partners, actually, he had a heart transplant. How does that affect that person? In that case, we'd have to onboard them again, because the pattern would be different. But again, that's another technology. It just links to the AI components to be able to create digital identities. And if you're interested in that, I'll give you a shout out to Timbo. Timbo is basically the technology that does the heartbeat things. I'll put it in the chat or on LinkedIn under this video at the end of this, so you can go and check it out as well. There's a couple other questions. Matt, is there anything? I'm just throwing it to you. You're like my Ed McMahon here, and I'm Johnny Carson. Not as good as Johnny Carson, but
I don't have any envelopes, Gary, to hold up to my forehead do the Carnage bit. So
right. Yeah, so there's a great question that's been asked. Nate asks, has anyone in the Knoxville area like TVA incorporated Web3? That's a great question. I do know, which is probably pretty obvious. I know that Oak Ridge is doing some experimental stuff. There's a really cool startup that we work with called Quantum Security that uses quantum computing and a distributed ledger. And I know that they were working on some things high level, but I don't know if TVA has gone. Matt, do you know if the TVA is doing any Web3 blockchain type?
I do not.
Yeah.
I do not. I know that we'd love to help them.
We'd love to help them. Yeah. Count us in. We'd love to do that. Here's a last question that we have too by TC. If you're new to the tech industry, what area would you suggest entering in? An already established or something more like tethered AI that's still being built? I love this question. Matt, I'm going to pose it to you and then I'll answer it as well. So the question from TC is, if you're just joining the tech industry, would you suggest entering into something that already exists or going into uncharted territory? What is your take on that, Matt?
Well, I think if you have opportunity to get involved with new technologies, that's a great way to get a career started, right? To be on the forefront. But I'll give an old guy answer, Gary, and that is what I've learned is that because of Moore's law and the other trends in technology over the life of my career, I've had to be a lifelong learner.
Right.
And learn new technologies constantly and taking on, challenges like, learning from you.
Right. I learned from you.
Attending talks like this.
Right.
So I would encourage you to get involved with the most cutting edge thing that you can, but don't be discouraged if you don't, because there's so many opportunities and just being a lifelong learner. And if you're in the technology field, you're going to be taking on new challenges daily.
By the way, yeah, and I have to agree with that. I never thought back in the day when it was, I'm just going to date myself as well. I remember when I was building my first web page and I was doing HTML and I was like, oh, this is hard. Then we did Adobe Flash and we're like, oh, this is hard. And then Steve Jobs says, don't do Adobe Flash anymore. So we gave that up and we went to HTML. Like, it's just constantly changed. Went really old. And now every day there's a new thing. Don't, do blockchain this way. Don't do blockchain that way. Do AI this way. Don't do it that way. But here's my advice from that. I during COVID, I was teaching a lot of data science classes after hours. So I was teaching R and Python and Julia and some other languages. And I would tell, and everybody wanted to learn Python, which is an amazing language. Don't get me wrong. Everyone uses it. It's very utilitarian. You can use it for everything. But I would encourage my students because, there's so many people doing Python, to kind of show off in Python would be really hard. Don't get me wrong. I still have some of those that did. They took it and they're doing phenomenal stuff. But I would encourage a lot of my students to say, find that language that you really like that not many people know yet. Like Julia was a combination of Python and R, and be an expert, be a niche expert in that one, because you're going to be a massive fish in a very small pond. And that will really rise you. And you can always learn the other stuff as you go, but being that one expert, because no one knows what makes it break, what makes it good, but you become that expert, people are going to be reaching out to you. But that also takes a risk. You might put all of your eggs in a basket around one technology, and then poof, it goes like Adobe Flash. It just goes away. So there's that risk. But I don't know. I always encourage it. Now, from a Knoxville perspective, I think, Matt, you will say this. We want you all. If you got a technology, you're interested in it, we're hiring at the Knoxville office. We got a lot of opportunities. We love our office. It's a brand new one. Smells new. Still has a new car smell. So please reach out to us. We'd love to try to fit you into a path around technology. Would you say that's? I hope I didn't overspeak there, Matt.
Absolutely. See, we're hoping to grow the Knoxville office to 300 members by 2020.
Right. So. That's right. Wouldn't it be great if we're over capacity? That'd be a great thing too.
We're about halfway there.
So. Right. And I think this is going to be my last question for the night. It's also by TC. He says, also back to the kill switch of AI. Is there a fail safe in place where if a person is in charge of the kill switch is in defib? I love these scenarios, by the way. So I get the scenario. Here I am. I've logged in. I've authenticated with my heartbeat. AI has gone off and done something. And then I have a heart attack, which sounds like a perfect, by the way, I need to write this down. I love writing. I love the Knoxville Film Festival. I need to write this down as a script. So remember, these are all scenarios. Right now, no one's using for some reason, it's taken a little bit longer to get heartbeat authentication going more than it has with your face, your finger, and your eye, and that type of thing. I guess because people are just so used to those. So we haven't really ran into a scenario there. But even if they did, and again, now we're just going to talk fiction and fantasy. If I kicked AI off, it went off and did something. The goal, what Timbo does is they create a multi-sig kind of signature to execute, to kick something off. So if I died or had a heart attack and I had to go to the hospital, there's multiple people in that for that execution, that workflow that could shut it down or kill switch it if they wanted to. So I don't want you to think it's all linked to one person and then when they die, the world ends. That'd be the worst. Anyway, I love your ideas though, TC. That's a really definitely a good book to read about. And I think that's it. Is there anything else, Matt, you'd like to say before we close this thing up?
No, just want to thank everyone that joined. Gary, want to thank you, obviously, for pulling together the material and providing this presentation to a group. And as I mentioned when we started, we had hoped to be able to be in person to do this and capture that live energy and appreciate K-Tech and yourself and all of the folks that participated online in pivoting to this digital format, and we'll look forward to being together for our next one live.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to get everybody into the CGI office. Thank you for the opportunity, Matt, to be working for CGI Knoxville, and Lori, who's been texting me as well. We want to give a shout out to Lori on the CGI Federal side, and thanks to everybody that's listened now and in the future that are watching this re-recording. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in person next time. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, buddy. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.